In this video, I'm going to review the immersive content currently available on the Vision Pro. The Vision Pro has been out for over 7 months now, and there's been a ton of reviews on it, but there's been very few reviews on the immersive content. I've had my Vision Pro now for over 7 months, and I've used it almost every single day. And I've worked in the film industry for over 15 years, so I definitely have a lot to say about this. I'm going to be breaking this down by pros, cons, what needs to happen in the future, and my final thoughts. So with that being said, let's jump right in.
This intro intentionally left blank.
Okay, so pro number one, and this is something that a lot of Vision Pro owners already know, and that's that the immersive content can be really, truly amazing, an amazing experience where you really feel like you're in that environment and you can look in all different directions, and it's really something like most people have never experienced in their life. A good example of this is the Highline video from the Adventure series on the Vision Pro. For those of you that don't know, it follows a highliner, Faith Dickey, I believe her name is. And what makes this video so great is that it's got a good story, an actual solid story that keeps you interested. You feel like there's some stakes in the fact that this is a video about her trying to cross some of the fjords, and you can see that she sets the highline a pretty long distance, and you know what's at stake is basically that she could fall and die. And it keeps you on the edge of your seat. The cinematography is also used really well. You feel like you're up there, you know, it's got epic opening shots where she's right in your face and you feel like she's just like, you know, a few feet away. And you know, there's several moments where she does fall, and you know, that's the best way I can do it. Good story, good cinematography that supports the story. It's not just like a camera sitting in a corner watching what's happening, which is what some of the other immersive videos do, and you know, but I'll get to that later. So that is a big pro. When done correctly through good characters, just like any movie, good characters, good cinematography, cinematography that supports the story, then it can be a truly amazing experience. Okay, and so now I want to talk about, you know, these two apps that I think are an example of how content for the Vision Pro is done the right way. You could call this immersive content, you could call it spatial content. It's pretty unique. And these two apps are, one is the Gucci app and one is the Rewild app. So if you haven't seen those and you have a Vision Pro, definitely download them, check them out. So the Gucci app is, again, a great story about Gucci's new creative director, Sabato De Sarno, I believe his name is. And it takes you through, you know, his first fashion show and all the ups and downs and crazy stuff going on. The way it's done, it's a combination of a typical documentary. You can actually watch the documentary, but you're watching your typical documentary which in itself is interesting. You wouldn't even need a Vision Pro to watch this. It's just a good documentary about the crazy world of creating a fashion show and the fact that it's Sabato De Sarno's first fashion show. But when you watch it on the Vision Pro, not only is it a big, beautiful screen in front of you, but then they include other spatial content, immersive content. For example, when they're talking about him liking to dance and going to clubs and stuff, the room you're in turns into a club. When you're actually at the fashion show, the room you're in turns into the runway. You go into different rooms, you know, the entire room turns this bright red. That's part of the fashion show and part of Gucci's history. You see, you know, trolleys and trains go by you. You're all of a sudden, you know, in different towns in Italy. So this spatial content supports what you're watching on the screen. And this combination of the two, you know, seeing planes fly overhead and things like that, I mean, it really makes for a really awesome experience. And it makes it so that if more companies do something like this, I mean, it just completely takes watching an already good, interesting story to a completely different level. The other app is Rewild. It's a similar concept in that you're watching, you know, a National Geographic style video about the coastlines and how we're losing our coastlines, but your floor turns into the ocean. You see, you know, whales kind of going overhead. You get transported to under the ocean while you're watching this documentary in like small boats, you know, swimming right in front of you. And this takes, again, an already good story, interesting story. You know how a lot of those like nature documentaries can be, really interesting and you kind of want to keep watching the next episode. So it has that mixed with spatial content that brings you more into the story and makes you more involved in the characters and, the tension in the story and that sort of thing. And that's really what it needs. So those are two big pros of the immersive content on the Vision Pro. And it's an example of how things can be done the right way. Now I want to move over to some of the cons of the immersive content on the Vision Pro. Okay, so there's going to be more cons, of course, than pros right now. Okay, and so con number one, and that is the quality of the video is very low. I think this is something that some people notice, people don't, especially me, someone who is in the film industry, and I work as a colorist, and I'm used to seeing 4K, 8K, 12K footage in pristine, full quality, on my monitors. But even then, not that I'm like a super picky, stingy person with quality, but the video quality on the immersive content right now is just insanely low. It's the equivalent of 720p, not even HD. And for those of you that aren't technical and don't know what 720p means, it basically means, video quality that was maybe peaked at, in the early 2000s, something like that. Very low quality. Whenever your internet is slow and you're watching a YouTube video like this and it looks all kind of crappy and sort of grainy and pixelated, you're probably watching it in 720p. And that low quality completely takes you out of the experience. Something that could be an amazing experience, suddenly, you're flying over a beautiful landscape or you're seeing something and you kind of feel like you are there because of the immersive experience. But then when you kind of look a little further, the trees are fuzzy, like the details and everything is, it's not very clear, it's kind of blurry, it's kind of grainy. And to be honest with you, that's something that right now I think is a major setback on immersive content. If the video quality was at least, HD even, it would be much better. And if it was 4K, I mean, you would very much feel like you're actually there. If you could look down at, say, like trees or water and actually see individual leaves the way you see them like on a good OLED 4K monitor, that would take the experience to a completely different level. But right now, you look at the trees and fine detail and water and, whatever you're looking at, and it almost looks more like you're looking at a low quality camcorder from the 90s in some situations. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I don't think I'm exaggerating that much. It's just very blurry, very low quality. Okay, so another con is, whereas the video that I mentioned before, the Highline video, there's maybe one or two other ones, and the Gucci one and those, have a good story. Most of the immersive content is just flat out boring. There's no story. I mean, even in the case of the dinosaur immersive content, even though that looks great because it's all computer generated footage, it's just boring. There's maybe a minor microscopic story, but usually it's a story no one cares about. You see the dinosaurs walking through the woods, which is cool. Just not that much happens. And then on top of that, the videos are very short. So you seem to have one side or the other. The dinosaur stuff has good visual quality, but they're boring and nothing is happening. Whereas the other ones that have a good story, the video quality is blurry and horrible. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to what is needed in the future to have a better experience with the immersive content. And right now, I've said one thing a million times. I probably sound like a broken record, so I'll just say it one time, and that is future content needs to have a better story. 2, higher quality content, so that we're not looking at a blurry image, we're looking at a sharp, pristine, 4K, 8K image. And with that, I do want to talk about new content that recently came out and also the discrepancy in some content. Blackmagic Design, they do have a camera that they've been working on, a stereoscopic camera. And for those of you that don't know what Blackmagic Design is, they're a video company that creates great cameras, great post-production software. It's software that I use. It's software that millions of people around the world use. they use their cameras, and they're making a camera that can basically shoot spatial video. And with that being said, one of the new releases was the NFL video. And one thing that I noticed about the NFL video that recently came out, that video actually looked great. That video actually looked really good, very crisp. It was bright, it was colorful, it was sharp compared to all the other videos. So maybe that footage was shot on Blackmagic's spatial video camera. There's no real way of knowing, but that footage was definitely shot with much higher quality cameras. If all the spatial content can at least be that quality, I think the experience will be completely different. And so in the future with those things, you know, better story, better quality footage, and longer storylines, I think, you know, it's really what anyone with a Vision Pro wants. They want to see an episode of something, no matter what it is, and just have a good story and feel like you are immersed in the story through your Vision Pro, or have an experience like the Gucci and the Rewild app, where you might be watching a 2D image, a 2D documentary in front of you, but you have things kind of happening around you, spatial things, spatial content, you know, visual effects happening around you that complement the story. Right now, there's not much. You have these independent apps that are doing some cool things, and then you have the stuff released by Apple, which tends to be kind of, again, not that great at the moment. But if this can be fixed in the future, I think the experience on the Vision Pro will be much better. Okay, and so my final thoughts on this obviously sounds like a kind of negative review, and I guess overall it kind of is. But I do want to put in my experience from the film industry in that I know how hard it is to introduce a new system into the film industry. You know, there's a lot of post houses now that are still on only HD. There's a lot of people that still do not want to move to 4K, and we all know how long 4K has been around for. So introducing this new system of spatial video costs a lot of money, requires much faster computers, requires new workflows, faster hard drives. Everything has to be upgraded. And then it also involves a lot of buggy software, a lot of trial and error, things like that. So I don't totally blame Apple. I'm not actually blaming anyone, because I know the reality of it is that you can't just go out and shoot stuff on your iPhone 15 and produce quality content. It has to be a combination of everything I mentioned, from good story, good cinematographers, and then also having the infrastructure to support productions like this, which will take time. It may take years. Hopefully it'll be faster. But the fact that Blackmagic Design is working on a camera and personally knowing the quality of work that they do, the quality of cameras and software, and how over the years they have kind of talked with Apple in terms of Final Cut Pro and other things like that, there's no one I would honestly trust more than Blackmagic Design, because they also have a reputation of doing what's best for the filmmakers, for the consumer, whereas other companies will release something and charge, you know, a $10,000 license to use it, and then, you know, $500 per software update, and, you know, they basically just want to take everything subscription based. And Blackmagic Design is not like that. So if this camera comes out, if more content is being produced and workflows get streamlined, then, you know, I think that's when you'll start seeing better and better and better content. So for now, I think we probably will be stuck with kind of, you know, crappy entry-level stuff, you know, videos, but fingers crossed that it does get better and better. So that's my 2 cents. Again, hope you got something out of this. This is a new channel if you're new, so like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.